Hello, fellow humans. I happen to be recording this in the year 2020, and at the time of this recording, humans were still around. If you happen to be watching this at a later date, and I'm in fact speaking to a robot, I would just like to say, on behalf of the human race, we had a good run. Today I will be speaking on how to set up an internal and external WSUS configuration all in one. I pronounce it WSUS. Other people may not agree with me. You need to decide for yourself how you're going to pronounce it, and please make a decision based on what's best for the general population. I'll be kicking off this video by asking, why would your organization want both an internal and external Windows Update system? If you happen to be journaling while watching this video, I'll give you a few seconds to answer that question yourself. While you're jotting your own answers down, I'll give you my answer. I work for a public K-12 school district in the United States, and so we have 3 to 4 months of summer vacation where our teachers are not on our local network to get Windows updates. This will allow them to get Windows updates while they are at home over summer break. I'm also recording this during the COVID-19/coronavirus/Kung Flu pandemic, and so we were also faced with the potential of our staff members having an additional couple months at home, working from home, without being on our local network to get Windows updates. An internal-only WSUS configuration only allows your end users to get Windows updates from your local server while they're on your local network. If you open up that server to the public, they can also get those updates while they're at their house. However, they will be using your organization's bandwidth from your ISP to download those updates to their computers over the internet. I came across a way to have both an internal and an external Windows Update system, but it was from multiple sources that I found this, and neither of them were comprehensive enough. So I decided to put this video together to show you how to do it, and how it worked for me. It would be nice if the WSUS system had a built-in way to tell if your clients were talking to it from your private network or if they were talking to it from the public internet, but since there's no way to differentiate between those on one single server, we have to stand up 2 servers. One will be the internal master server, and that server will contact Microsoft and download all of the update files, so you'll need a lot of storage on that server. And the second one will be the external server. It'll be your public-facing server, and when your clients check into that one, that system will tell them which updates you approved on the internal server, but instead it will tell them to grab the files from Microsoft directly. One reason that it becomes infeasible to be able to just tell your computers to download directly from Microsoft all the time and to not have your own server is then you don't have an opportunity to roll out the updates when you see fit, and you can't test updates before your users get them to make sure that it doesn't break anything in your environment. Need 2 Windows servers. 2016 and 2019 are the latest 2 versions that are out at the time of this recording. I will show you examples that I did on 2016 servers. You'll need port forwarding capabilities on your firewall. You'll need a TLS certificate because we'll want to make sure that the connections to these servers are encrypted. You'll need access to both your internal and external DNS records for your organization. You'll need access to edit group policy, but I'll also show you a way to edit it via the registry. And then you'll also need both an on-network computer and an off-network computer for testing purposes to make sure that this is working at the end. So I got this idea from a blog called Decent Security at decentsecurity.com. And it's titled WSUS in the Real World, but you'll see that it says it's under construction. Boo for that. So you'll see that it's a pretty comprehensive list of instructions here. It talks about 2 servers, but when it gets to some of the ending instructions, you'll see that it says to do on a couple of things. So I found this YouTube video that I was inspired by to be able to help me figure out the encryption piece with the TLS certificate. So looking at those 2 things together, I'll show you what worked for me. So we are going to start following the instructions on that real-world WSUS post. This article will detail how to configure an internal WSUS server hosting approved updates and an external replica server that syncs approvals with the internal server but tells clients to download update files from the Microsoft. From the Microsoft, not just a Microsoft, the Microsoft. The external server then rolls up all client statuses to the internal server. This is great for a roaming laptop workforce without constant VPN access. This next part I'm highlighting makes me a little nervous, but I wanted to point it out. Normally this would not work totally reliably because of a known issue with WSUS not replicating WSUS ID cookies between master and replica servers. However, with a scheduled task on your clients, you can just kick them to refresh the cookie if needed. This will be detailed in the client configuration section. Unfortunately, that's a section that is under construction at the time of this recording. I also don't know what WSUS ID cookies are, so I'm going to have to look into that. But when I did a little quick Google searching, I ended up finding a post on Microsoft's TechNet gallery that talks about a way that you can change the WSUS ID. So if that ends up being an issue, apparently there's a way around it that's recorded. I assume this has to do with a unique ID that becomes less unique when a computer checks into 2 different servers. But personally, I'm just going to keep an eye on it, and if I find issues where computers aren't checking in properly, I'll know exactly where to go to fix it. The next notable section in this article talks about whether or not you want to go off an existing WSUS server or if you want to build one from scratch. Personally, I built a new one from scratch, and so that's what I'm going to go over in this video, though this article helps you through rebuilding your current WSUS server for this new configuration. For the purposes of this example, we're going to skip down to the section in the article called Building a Blank Slate WSUS Server. It also talks about creating a folder where you'll want to save all of the update files. Now remember, for this internal master server, you'll need plenty of storage because it'll save all of the update files to it. In my case, we built a couple of virtual servers, and so we just stuck this folder on the C drive. But if you need to have extra space on another drive, it may need to be another drive letter, like they say in the article. Make sure to give the security principal called network service full control to that folder. I'm not sure why, but I did it, and it says that it's not a security concern, so go ahead and do it. Now's a good time to talk about what to name these 2 servers and the beauty of this system. I named them WSUS int for the internal master server and WSUS ext for the external public server. Then you can end up using some DNS trickery to tell your internal clients to go to the internal server, and you tell your clients out on the internet to go to your external server. Now get your cup of coffee ready and snuggle up because I'm about to share some DNS information with you. These are my internal DNS records related to Windows updates. Don't worry about WSUS 1 because that's actually the name of our old Windows Updates server, but the other ones are what we're going to talk about. So assuming that you want to use DNS for these systems on your network, we'll actually have 2 separate names because we have both of these servers sitting locally on our network. So in my case, we called them WSUS int and WSUS ext, and then we used a C name just called WSUS, and that's actually the DNS record that we'll use to point people to this internal Windows Updates system. For external DNS, we aren't going to need separate DNS records for each of the servers because we're only publishing the one server that is the external server, and you only have to name it WSUS in an A record inside DNS. IP address inside that A record will be whatever the public IP address is that you give your external Windows Updates server. You could do a DMZ scenario. You could put that external server straight onto a public subnet, which has its own security issues, so I would not recommend that. Or what I did is I set up my firewall with a public IP, and I used NAT, and I did port forwarding to my external WSUS server. Using this DNS trickery, we'll be able to have one group policy that shows our clients where to go, and they'll actually go to either the internal or the external server based on whether they're on your network or out on the internet, but it will get them to your same WSUS system because these two servers are synced together. I don't otherwise go over any of the networking components of this, so you'll have to figure those pieces out yourself. This is not a beginner video in that regard. Guys, he thought this was a beginner video. Now that you have your server built, which good for you, you did that in about 20 seconds, good job, we're going to go to the section called Roles Install. So follow the instructions here on the screen. Number 9 is actually not related to building a fresh server, so I X'd it out, but otherwise follow these instructions. I'll take a moment to show you the specs on my master server. So we did use virtual servers for both of these. For this internal one, we have 16 gigs of memory, a 500 gig hard drive, and then I figured I'd take this opportunity to show you that I did the permissions from the last slide. The next step talks about clicking to download Express installation files on your server. I thought that I did that during my installation process, but as you can see here, I didn't. When I read the description of it, it talks about faster download and installation on my computers, which I'm not really concerned about because those generally happen in the background anyway. And it says the files are larger and will increase download times for your server, so I don't really understand how that equates out. If you have experience with one or both of these settings, feel free to make a comment below and let us know what that's all about. Though I'm not going to be one of those annoying people that tells you to click the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel because I literally do not care about this channel. I just wanted to get this video out for all of you. Next is the step where you decide which Microsoft updates you'll be downloading to your server. Now, do your own thing here. You don't have to do what this man, woman, or robot is telling you to do in terms of which updates to grab. I just duplicated what the settings were on my old server, though I would agree, don't tell it to download drivers. That just seems like a terrible idea. Do not start the sync yet. Next, we're going to be doing some IIS shenanigans. So follow the instructions on this screen, except for the last one. This person, place, or thing left out the instructions on how to get a certificate installed into your IIS system, so that's where we're going to visit this YouTube video. Visiting the video at 1 minute 22 seconds in via your tube, she goes on to talk about how you use the Server Certificates button to get a certificate set up in IIS. I ended up choosing the import option because our organization has a wildcard certificate from a third-party provider, so we're good to go there. If you do the certificate stuff yourself and create one, I believe you'll have to upload that certificate to all of your clients so that they trust it. If I say something wrong, feel free to rake me over the coals in the comments. I really don't care. I don't know you. I'm not scared. Then, after I imported my fancy certificate, I was getting an error. A specified logon session does not exist. Now, the nice lady on the tube did not say how to import a certificate, so she didn't cover this checkbox that I found out you need to check. So I got this information from another source.
Geez, how many sources does this guy have? Exactly, that's why I'm creating this video.
Now that we have the cert piece taken care of, we can go back to the binding steps. If you would have previously tried to fill out the SSL certificate field, nothing would have showed up as an option. In this instance, we're going to use port 443 instead of the Windows Updates port of 8531. Then we hit up the video again at marker 3 minutes 7 seconds and go to each of these virtual directories inside the WSUS website. Click the SSL settings for each of them, click the Require SSL checkbox, click Apply for that one, and go down to the next virtual directory. Go ahead and click your server name once you're done with all those virtual directories, and click the Restart button to restart IIS on that server. Now prepare to be okay with this, because in your WSUS console it's going to look like you just broke everything to crap, but because of enforcing SSL that you just did, it actually means that everything is working properly. And there's another step we have to run, which is a PowerShell command as seen in this slide, in order to make it happy again. Exit and re-enter your WSUS console, and now it should tell you it's being published at port 443. Next comes the group policy piece in order to tell your machines which server to go to for Windows updates. You'll use the single fully qualified domain name that is both in that CNAME record in your internal DNS, as well as what you'll set up as an external A record in your DNS settings there. And here is where those settings would show up in the registry. Here are the locations of the registry values, and I put it into a script form if you want to write a batch script out of it. There is a timeout in place, which gives the service time to stop before restarting it at the end. Now we can hop back over to the Real World WSUS article, and we go to the Replica External Server section. Highlighted are the pieces that we'll take from this section. When it came to server name, I was actually able to put in the DNS name of that server. Now remember, both of my servers were internal to my network, so they both show up in our DNS records. I was also able to put port 443 in as the number because I took care of encryption at the beginning. Now, also while on your external server, you tell it not to store update files locally, but to tell your computers to go to Microsoft Update and then start a sync. Now we need to set up external access for your off-network users. So open IIS and then wait for my next slide. So you're on your external server now, and for me, I did the exact same steps as I did on my internal server. On the main IIS page, you're clicking on Server Certificates, and I believe either way at this point you would be importing a certificate. I imported one on the internal server, so I imported the same one on the external server, but I imagine that if you created one for this scenario on the internal server set of instructions, that you would import that same certificate on the external server. Just go back and look at all of these instructions from earlier in the video and do the same thing. Set up the same bindings with the same ports that are listed, and then the same name as well as you put in the internal server, the one that was in that CNAME that I showed you on that slide. You'll change the SSL settings for those same virtual directories, restart IIS, and then you run that PowerShell command with the same name as you did on the internal server. So I believe that we're done with all of the instructions at this point, and hopefully I didn't miss anything. Please feel free to mention something in the comments if there's something that I missed. Now a little quick tidbit of information regarding what your new servers will look like. Not so much about this exact setup, but just in general, the fact that you've set up a new WSUS server. You may see, like I did, as you can see here, that there are a bunch of old updates, even from years and years ago, and that could be just that some of your servers haven't gotten some of those updates in the past, but that's just one thing to note, that the list of updates will have the most recent ones, but it may also have some very old ones as well.
Now, because presumably at least one of your WSUS servers is new, you'll have to download software to view the Windows Updates reports. Here I'm looking to see which computers need a particular update, and before you install the software, you'll get an error telling you that you need software to view these reports. First, you'll install something called the Microsoft System CLR types for SQL Server, and in my case, I'm looking for 2012. Next, you'll download something called the Microsoft Report Viewer, and in my case, it's 2012 Runtime. Then once you've downloaded those things, I believe you're ready to view reports on your WSUS console. I think that wraps it up, and hopefully I got it all right. Feel free to drop some comments. Peace be with you.